Alright, hi. Welcome back to the Lazarus project. I guess for the last time, because this is the final update. It's been a long, winding road, if you'll excuse the cliche. Just as a quick recap, in this project, I rebuilt my first PC using original parts where I could. The whole thing was about the experience of piecing it together, setting it up, and playing with it. I think more than just having the machine at the end. It was about doing it. I tried throwing some upgrades into the box, and I did play a bunch of games on it. And, it didn't go completely smoothly. I ended up fighting with non-functional hardware, broken software quite a bit. That's the elevator pitch. If you want all the details, there's a whole series of videos, documents the whole thing. And yes, making those videos, that was another big part of the project. Actually took a lot of the time. The computer itself ended up with final specs very similar to what I intended from the beginning. We've got the original CPU, motherboard, RAM, network card, and video card. When I say original, I mean these are what the machine had when it was retired, not all of these things. I mean, it wasn't built with a 64 mega RAM, I think it had 16, didn't have a network card originally. For the sound card, floppy drive, and optical drive, I used what I could get. I went with a new power supply, new disc-on module, and a floppy emulator. The case has a bit of a story of its own. It had a computer in it when I picked it up. I ended up using some of those parts, and I did also try putting a Voodoo 2 3D accelerator in this machine. So was this a successful project? I'd say that yeah, it was. Even though there is a big elephant in the room, which I will get to later. I learned a lot about computers, especially old computers. I got to play with a bunch of really cool stuff, and I had, a ton of fun just going on this journey. There are quite a few things I'm taking away from this. The first is probably pretty obvious, and that's that computers are easier now. Yeah, who didn't already know that? They're easier to build, easier to set up, easier to use, and I'm talking about hardware and software here. Old computers really suck to work in. We have terrible case designs, all these connectors that are unlabeled and unkeyed. We have cables, brackets everywhere. On the other hand, even really cheap components that builder-friendly designs. We've got color coding, keyed connectors today. It's just a lot easier now. And on the software side, modern operating systems are much easier to set up, and they're much more forgiving when things go bad. Real hardware is fun, but it's also kind of inconvenient. I can't speak for everyone. It is a subjective thing, but for me, having the real deal in my hands is just really cool. I forgot how much I enjoyed hardware. I haven't done a lot of hardware. I've been mostly doing software for years, and getting back into the hardware through these old machines has been really cool. There's definitely a je ne sais quoi to playing games on the authentic-ish hardware as well. But on the other hand, there's definitely a convenience factor to emulation and virtualization. People don't just do this to pirate things. The old stuff can be really frustrating to get working, especially if you don't have a dedicated gaming space. Then you have to deal with setup and teardown, and recording it is just a mess. I have like a chain of adapters. You can't just use like a screen recorder. Computers move slower now. I mean, they're way faster, obviously, but the relative and absolute differences from generation to generation have shrunk way down. That's what I'm talking about. The average performance between Sandy Bridge and Sky Lake, for instance, it's a difference of about 40%. That's 4 years, and that's the same as going from a Pentium 133 to a 1 GHz Pentium 3. As you can probably guess from the clock speeds, that's a performance difference of about 180%. And, while an RTX 2080 might actually be a worthwhile upgrade for your Devil's Canyon rig from a few years ago, a Voodoo 2 in a Pentium machine, same difference in years, is bottleneck city. When we get down to it, unfortunately, this is not a practical computer. No, I'm not complaining that it can't handle a modern web or it won't run Crysis. I mean, for what I really want to do with this, it's just not the right machine. For the games I want to play, especially, it's too slow and too limited. The CPU bottlenecks like crazy in half the games I've tried. The 4GB disc-on module is almost period correct capacity-wise, but it's too small for a lot of games. And the slow network and slow disk access along with a slow CPU make installing things a chore, and it drives me a little crazy, And so that's the elephant in the room I'm talking about. The machine just is not practical. What's next then? For this particular machine, unfortunately, despite all the sentimental value, despite this journey, I think it's going to do a lot of standing around. It's just kind of my instinct there. It's been a great project, and now that I've played with this retro computing stuff, I think I can build a practical retro gaming rig that does what I really want it to do. I know what I want from my machine, and I know what kind of hardware I need to get it to do that. And you know, I'll admit, in fact, I've actually begun that project already. I don't have a ton of time, so it won't be as thoroughly documented, and it's going to be like here and there, not a steady schedule, although I didn't end up having a steady schedule with this one. Anyway, you know, I'm planning to do at least one video on it to kind of show it off, go through that journey with you guys. So, you know, I guess that's it for the Lazarus project. It's been a hell of a journey. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.